How are you?
Hello, George. How you doing, man? Hold it. We should say hi. Come on, Chase. Say hi.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and start our meeting.
Gina, fight for us, man. Gina, huh?
We're going to go ahead and start our meeting.
My job.
And we always start our meeting with pledging to allegiance, so if we can all rise. Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So in the interest of time, the first speaker that we have today is our Congressman George Santos. And so we will have George speak to us. After he speaks to us, we'll have a moment for Q&A, and then he has to leave. So the time is yours. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Lourdes. I appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Sorry it took so long to do one of these with y'all, but I look forward to doing them more regularly to keep you guys updated. I know it's been a nightmare in government overall. The last couple of months hasn't been easy. We have some local issues we've been dealing with, but we also have national issues that we've been dealing with, and I'll address the elephant in the room right now. I have personal issues I'm dealing with, and that I'm putting that also and taking care of that. But in the interest of the 3rd Congressional District of New York, I want to go over what our office has done in the last 9 months, what we look forward to doing, and what we can do better to serve this community in New York's 3rd District better, right? So with that, I just wanted to start off with saying that we've been in extensive talks. I know that a big pressure point in Bellerose has been the Creedmoor facility, and we've gotten a large amount of complaints. I've been to the facility. I attempted to inspect the facility. There are federal dollars in play in the facility. Unfortunately, we are not being given direct oversight access to the facility. So now we have moved from a friendly approach to a more unfriendly approach. So we're going to have to, take really the power of the purse and take advantage of the subpoena powers we have. However, we don't have a functioning Congress because some of my colleagues decided to
Jump ship. There's so much partisanship.
look. Good evening, officer. How are you? Look, here's the reality. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, the way you just got to look at it is it's not working right now the way it's happening. We don't have a Speaker of the United States. We just took an unprecedented vote that I never thought in my lifetime we'd be taking. It took 15 votes to confirm our former Speaker now, Mr. McCarthy. We don't know who the next speaker is going to be, and quite frankly, a lot of the questions that we're getting, it's frustrating because I don't have those answers. None of my colleagues have those answers. There's no, in past history, precedented evidence of how to handle this. Here's the plan. Tuesday, we're back in D.C. We're going to conference as a GOP majority. We're going to see who the candidates for House Speaker are. We're going to let them do their dog and pony show. Wednesday, we're going to go back into conference, and we're going to vote this in conference until we have 218, which is the majority, to then take it to the House floor. We're not going to do what we did in January of taking 15, 13, whatever votes it takes to confirm a new speaker. So in reality here, we're looking at this can be a very lengthy process before you can get 218 people to agree on one person. It's a lot of personalities in the room, a lot of priorities, a lot of wants. Look, for us here in New York, we're in a crunch, we're in a bind. I just want to get the person who's going to take the migrant crisis serious, who's going to take the taxation issue serious, who's going to take inflation serious, and then run with that. And then everything else I believe we can sort out on its own on a bipartisan fashion with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, which I've done some work with on specifically around water infrastructure, around aviation complaints of the FAA regulatory agency when it comes down to airport noise and traffic. With that said, I wanted to go over some of the things that we've done so far that have benefited New York's 3rd District. And this is obviously not specific to Bellerose, but I'm talking district-wide, so you guys have the scope of the work, although Bellerose is in the district. The bulk of this district is in Nassau County. Although I am a Queens resident myself, I have to make sure that everybody's being taken care of. So in Bethpage, we were able to reinstate and reauthorize a couple of $1 million for their water restoration projects that they've been going on with contaminated plumes. We were able to secure $30 million in a deal with Speaker McCarthy to bring back to this district to help with water infrastructure all across the district in different several projects. Fortunately, that right now is on pause until the next speaker comes in and we re-engage in that. We re-engage in that deal, but everything is standing by right now. We've also been very transparent in working with the United States Merchant Marine Academy, which is one of the pride and joys of this district, where we put a lot of young cadets and midshipmen through there with really stellar careers, and a lot of people don't realize that this is a very big opportunity and vehicle in this district. We've been working closely with them. We've been working closely with rooting a lot of threats of the Chinese Communist Party's influence in this district. I know that might go way over a lot of our heads. It went over my head until I actually understood the issue. We were having a lot of interesting activity within our schools, within some of the colleges in the district, within some of the high schools in the district. We've been addressing that through legislating aggressively. We've been working with law enforcement to establish a better form of communication between our office and what goes on within the district, the 109, the 111, the 105. They've been fantastic to work with alongside with their counterparts out in Nassau County. We've actually enjoyed them. It's been quite the good relationship there. We're also trying to make sure that we can secure a bill that prohibits public funds to go into securing migrant facilities without a public board and community review. What does that mean? Without organizations like yours led by Lourdes to have input and have the opinion board open for an appropriate amount of time so that we as taxpayers have the ability to weigh in on these very life-changing issues within our communities. We also have been able to pass some of the most consequential legislation as a House Republican majority, but not being, I don't want to make it partisan. Want to make sure that we understand that we did work with our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to make some of these bills come through, such as the HR 1, HR 2. Those were great bills for us, which one is the cost of, I just want to sum it up. I don't want to give you Washington jargon. So I want to train myself in being a normal human being that speaks normal and doesn't just come up with this Washington jargon, which is very infuriating. But essentially the bill's idea is to make fuel affordable, to the cost of energy, to reduce the cost of energy in the country by allowing permits and allowing us to produce energy domestically. Number two, HR 2, which was our migrant and border revampment of the southern border. That is something that we've been working very hard on. We passed that. The Senate is now negotiating with us because they understand that during the appropriations process, which is the process that we fund government with, they understand that they're not going to get what they want if they don't work with us. At the end of the day, we're the power of the purse. The Senate might be in a different party, but they need to work with us, and I believe that when the next speaker comes in, we're going to have better agreements, better understandings, and just move forward. I'm looking very forward to having a new speaker so that we can get the business of the people done soon and fast. And then, look, we can go on and on. I don't want to read off of this stuff that my staff put together for me, but it's always helpful to have them for pointers. I do rather open it up to Q&A so we can really get to what you guys need, what you guys want, as far as what I can bring from D.C., what I can do for you guys in Washington, D.C., how can I represent Bellerose in a way where you guys believe it's bringing results. So with that, I'll just open it to Q&A. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Thank you. So, you know what, I'm going to start it off for the group because, you know, as one of the representatives of the Bellerose community, we're a small community, but obviously the migrant tents right over here in Creedmoor has been on everybody's mind, so much so that I think this is one of the largest groups we've had in a very long time. So can you tell us from your position, your office, what is it that you can actually do to help us with this particular problem that we have, and what do you foresee happening?
So this is an issue that we've been talking about a lot for the last, 45 days or so, since the tents were populated. What we can do is, we have oversight over the federal dollars. Let me stand up so everybody can see what I'm speaking, sorry about that. We have oversight over the money, the federal money that is in play in these facilities. A lot of it is state and city money authorized by the governor, by the mayor, and they're reappropriating funds from other places to facilitate this and to mitigate what's going on in New York City. Make no mistake, I think every level of government, no matter party affiliation, agrees that this is a problem for us. We are disproportionately being affected by this issue than most states across the country. We're not even really a southern border. We're not a southern border state. We're a northern border state. Our northern border has less intake than any other border in this country. So it's very frustrating to be in this situation when we are not really supposed to be dealing with it. But with that said, what I'm doing and what I mentioned earlier is we try to have an amicable relationship with the facility. I showed up about 2 Saturdays ago. I thought it was an appropriate day. It was not. It's not a weekday. I try to do it very slow earlier in the day. Hey guys, usually most people are out midday. I'd really like to come talk to you guys, see what's going on. I'm not here. I came in peace, and I come in peace with this. As being a child of immigrants, I understand the fragility. Queens, being the way Queens is, I can almost, if we were to do a show of hands, who here has a background with an immigrant family? I mean, I don't think a single person in this room can't raise their hand. So we're sensible to the issue, but we also need to be sensible to the disruption it causes in all of our lives. So I'm trying to gain access, trying to build a relationship. I was met with hostility, I was denied entry, and then they promised us that we would have a second opportunity at coming back. Our office has tried without any avail, so now we're going to, in government, what this means is you need to have a hook for you to have oversight over it. So we discovered and followed where the money is coming from. There are federal dollars being deployed in the site, so we can hook onto that and have oversight, which then we're in the majority as Republicans in the House, we're able to have subpoena power. So I'm working closely with the chairman in oversight to actually take the actions that are necessary to put a freeze on funds or whatever it is that we can do, right? We're exploring avenues, but just to make sure that we're given access. Access is imperative because I stood out there, spoke for about an hour with some of the migrants. Believe it or not, they're complaining about the hospitality we're giving them. Although we're feeding them, we're giving them shelter, we're giving them free medical care, and they're complaining about, oh, you're just giving us carbs and sugar, we're not getting, real hot meals, they're microwavable meals. I mean, like, look, I come from a line of thinking beggars can't be choosers. I understand that someone wants to have a fair shake and eat a fair meal, but you can't really push back on us. I mean, we're in a position that this is the best we can do, and we're happy to continuously do it, but we need to understand that we do have limits to our resources, right? So that's what we're doing. We're doing oversight checks on them. We will be taking action. It just pains me to see that everything we've been working for is going to be at a halt now until we have a speaker. Without a speaker, no legislation moves. Without a speaker, the only thing that can happen is committee business as usual, but everything else comes to a halt.
Is there, I'm sorry to interrupt, is there another question on the floor about the tent city that you want to get off your chest?
You were here 2 weeks ago, Congressman, and I commend you for coming to our community. You always stand for the people, and I respect that highly.
Thank you.
When you tried to gain access in there and you're a congressman and they refuse to let you in, that's a red flag. What are they hiding in them tents?
Look, we can speculate all we want, and I agree. It's troubling when and I would say this if it were my counterpart on the other side of the aisle or anybody. I heard that Donovan Richards was also denied entry, and he's a Democrat borough president of Queensborough. And I think it's troubling that we're being denied access to see what's going on in there.
They let Linda Lee in, she went in, no problem.
No, he said, they had said he was denied. Maybe at a later date. Okay, so the first attempt denied and then he got, okay. So look, so it looks like he was denied at first, given access later on. I have not been given the same courtesy. And I don't care about politics, I don't care about what your opinion of me is. I represent you guys, I have the right to go in there just to see with my own eyes, so I know what's going on in my own district. I live here, you guys live here, it's my responsibility to deliver a fair representation for you guys.
Thank you. Another question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Go
that's
ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
Who's denying you?
The site supervisor.
Really?
Yep.
Another
Sir?
question on 10 City?
Yep.
When you guys finally elect a new speaker, is there a way to cut federal funding going to that?
Yes, there is, and that's what the oversight, the work and oversight that we're gonna be doing is for, is to make sure that we need to mitigate the crisis. There's a crisis, and money isn't gonna solve it, right? We've seen how if you throw too much money at a problem, the problem just gets bigger but doesn't really get solved. We need to control what's going on, and I think this all leads to, I think at this point, when you have 3 mayors in 3 heavily Democrat states in the Northeast saying the same thing, that the administration is not taking appropriate action, and that's Connecticut, that's New York, and that's Massachusetts. They're all coming together and saying that President Biden has failed in this issue and that they want more from him. And then obviously, there's a play with Congress because Congress has placated in some, I'm not gonna come here and tell you we're perfect. We've passed what we want to happen, but we haven't really opened it up to discussion with the Senate yet. And we're trying to hardball and hardline, but I think it's about time we all open it up for discussion because this hardlining on the president's side and on the Republican House majority side, it doesn't bode well and it doesn't really benefit you guys. So I look very much forward to engaging in a very bipartisan fashion where we do get the issue resolved at the source, which is the southern border.
60% of all the people are living paycheck to paycheck. This is gonna drain our resources. AOC has a proposal to hike our state taxes. There's more people moving out of New York, which is further gonna diminish our tax base. All the businesses are moving out. I'm concerned about my pension, the health care that they're gonna take from us to subsidize the illegal problem. That's
Lucky
just
for
what I'm
you,
worried about.
AOC doesn't legislate state policy, only
Right.
federal, so you're lucky.
I know.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll start with a comment.
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Comment that I hope many people are thinking about. Take back to Washington that it's inappropriate to refer to it as a tent city. By definition, a tent is cloth and can be victims of the elements. Those are steel longhouses, as you often see in the Midwest. Correct it. Maybe that'll also have people understand that they're not under any duress. We've gone on the grounds ourselves while they were erecting them. That's what I'd like you to take back. My next is, as a retired teacher who still subs in this district and lives right here, do you have statistics for us on the immediate schools here? What the percentage of new immigration is? What's coming specifically to the elementary schools?
So there hasn't been, first of all, on the tent comment, I agree, that's great
Good idea.
that's great feedback. I visited the same exact structure in El Paso. That is climate proof, and I think I told some folks, that is actually as solid and sturdy as a actual house.
It was leaking though, I heard
It was,
reports.
it was flooded.
Doesn't
yes.
everything leak in this world? So to answer your question on the immigration impact to schools, there has been no study by locality, by school district, it only has been by citywide. Citywide, 30% impact. 30% in the city that we were already seeing classrooms with the volumes of 35 to 40 children a school, you know that for teachers is unfair. And I don't think any teacher should bear that. Look, I'm a big fan of teachers. I know folks like to say, oh, Republicans hate education, Republicans hate teachers. That's not true. Teachers made all of us. Now, kids don't like teachers because of homework. That's a whole different story. But to answer your question, the impact citywide has been 30%. We don't have statistics. Nobody has broken it down. It is so much information coming in so rapidly and changing constantly, it is really hard to keep up with any statistic, to have any measurable statistic point that you can actually say, this is it, because 2 days later it might change.
Who would be doing that anyway? Who would be doing the statistical research?
I would say that the city, the Board of Education from New York City, but then I'm not gonna go in there, but,
So
but.
we don't really also know proportionately if it's predominantly Hispanic from this country. I was told today by the crossing guard that in the hotels over here, that the dominance is from the Ukraine. We don't even know, right? I mean, that's what you basically.
So one thing we can say, and I don't remember the numbers exactly, so I'm just gonna give you a general understanding. The number one predominant population is still Latin Americans. That's inevitable. The number two predominant population are Africans now, which is very strange for us, but they are the number two. In New York, you're seeing a lot of Somalians, you're seeing a lot of Ugandans, you're seeing a lot of Ivory Coast folks. It's very strange that we're seeing that particular demographic migrating to South America, up the southern border, ending up in New York City. That said, they're people too, and I always remain committed that we treat them with dignity. Unfortunately, I think that the only solution we have for this problem is a very unpopular solution. And the solution is we need to expand immigration courts. We currently have 700 judges serving on immigration courts. We ought to double that to 1,400, expedite the cases, get the cases moving along faster. I'm sorry?
We don't have enough judges.
We don't have enough judges, and for those wondering whether, oh, but isn't this gonna be partisan? Immigration law isn't partisan, it's very factual, and there's very little room for interpretation, whether you qualify or you don't qualify for asylum. This isn't about trying to expedite them and have liberal, oh, but Joe Biden is in office, they're all gonna be liberal. No such, it's nonsense. That's absolutely a nonsense talking point. This is an objective case. It's not even real trial. It's just oversight of having a magistrate look at your case and say, you qualify and you don't qualify. So we should expand our courts for sure, the immigration courts. We should also be adding at least a 30% increase to USCSI, because that's the department that processes all the paperwork in case they do qualify for asylum. These guys are backed up in some cases, because they have different types of cases. The most backed up case is petition of a familial. It's 17 years now. So if you were to go in there today and say, oh, I want my brother from, I don't know, Italy to come here legally, it would take 17 years in today's process for your sibling to come to the United States legally. I'm sorry? So that's where the problems are. There's a backup. You can alleviate the backup by expanding the court and expanding USCSI instead of the IRS. I'm going to go back there first and you.
One
Okay?
last thing.
Yes, ma'am. Oh,
Why is it that they're showing priority to Venezuelans?
well, Venezuelans just declared a state of emergency under our guises, right, for asylum. And after what's been transpiring in Venezuela, I agree actually with my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that they should be given priority status in the sense of the situation's really bad down there. They are qualified asylum seekers, but with the exception of Venezuelans, they're going to be given similar treatment to the Cubans like they did and we saw because of how bad it's gotten in Venezuela. I agree with that measure. I know some of you might criticize me for that, but being somebody who comes from a family of migrants and understands the difference between real peril and bad socialism and bad policy, Venezuela is unlivable. And if we can, we should help. I'm not saying we go there and bring them all here, but if they make it to our doorsteps, we should open and extend our doors and help them out to the best of our ability. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can I just ask one question? So you said before, certainly this isn't a national problem. It is become a New York problem, it's a Chicago problem, and many other.
It's a problem in a lot of places. It shouldn't be a problem, right? Yeah.
So what has been the, could you perhaps walk us through what you and some of your colleagues perhaps have done about talking to governors along the southern border? And know that I don't disagree with what Abbott has done, I just disagree with the way he's done it, by just shipping people out and not telling anybody, oh, by the way, there's 10,000 people coming in here, not with that. So is there a way to perhaps collaborate and have conversations with the governors on the southern borders and your colleagues on the southern border to say, all right, look, we've got to get a handle on this. You can't just keep shipping people here not telling us about it. What can be done to have a more orderly process by which every state takes a share, not just, well, we should reach New York because that's the state.
That's a fantastic question. So I don't resent, let me put it this way. I'm not angry at Governor Abbott. I resent him a little bit because, as you said, I understand. Can you imagine being the state that sees anywhere between 7,500 on a low day all the way up to to north of 14,000 a day, right? They can't sustain this in their southern border cities. They can't sustain this in their state. Now, I do wish there was more communication, and we have started to engage in that. The benefit is New York has 11 Republicans now, so at least there's more of a bipartisanship out of the 26 of us. It's almost 50-50 if you really look at it in recent years. We're 2 away from being a split delegation of 50-50, which really benefits the people. Forget about the politics of it, it just benefits diversity of thought, of having us all come together and say, this isn't working, let's go talk to these guys. So there is an attempt, a formal attempt now working with the southern governors, the border state governors, to make sure that there's at least more coordination. But what's very unhelpful is, the governor was in New York, Governor Abbott was in New York earlier this week, and our governor refused to meet with him. So it's really difficult to start a conversation or negotiate anything when you have 2 governors making very sly remarks at each other when they're in the same boat. She's at the mercy of his desire to send up 20 more buses. She should come to the table and say, all right, let me talk to this guy. But on the House side, we're engaging in those conversations, and I'd love to be part of mediating and being a broker of peace so that we can together come and find a solution. But I think at the end of the day, this has now escaped control of Congress. It has escaped control of the states. The president has a viable option in the Senate. He just needs to talk to our Senator, Chuck Schumer, and say, hey, you have something there, make it work. We need to fix the issue. In the last 48 hours, over 38,000 people have entered the United States.
Yes.
That's 48 hours. Just keep counting. I'm going to go to the young lady here because she was first. Yes, ma'am.
Having witnessed 9/11 back in the day, I was downtown. Are they vetted? Do we know who's there? I mean, people say we'll never forget. We forgot. We're letting everybody in. I mean, I've applied. I've applied for my husband from Italy he had his green card all these years. Now we've applied for citizenship thousands of dollars later, and years later, we're still waiting. And these people are just being let in.
So, to answer your question is simple. There is no comprehensive vetting, and I'll explain to you why. When I was at the southern border earlier this year, I went there for an expedition of education. Mark, who's my district director, was with me. We were in awe of the infrastructure, and we were in awe of the process. But how many of you have been to a zoo before?
The Bronx Zoo.
Do you know, well, no. And my comment is you see how everybody took it to a direction? I'm gonna actually flip the switch on you. No human being should be in a display case for other people to view. But that's exactly what I witnessed. We walked down an aisle and there were rooms with glass encasing and kids staring out at us. And people, these are human beings. It's not pretty, it's not pleasant. I cried. I mean, I admit, I cried. I was moved. I don't want to see people in that position. And I think, what are the horrors that some of these people are leaving? To come here in the treacherous path that they seek to come here in, and then to put themselves in there. But then I discovered something even more disturbing. The more disturbing part, to answer your question, was there were these isolation boxes, a little wider than a porta potty. That's where they put their violent, known gang members, known terrorists, known people on the watch list. The problem is, if they're on the watch list and you catch them, great. But how many did we not catch? And then begs the question, how many are not on the watch list? Because they haven't been profiled yet. So we don't know. The answer is, as a representative of the federal government, ma'am, I cannot answer your question because our government has failed at profiling and identifying threats.
But you've got the technology.
We do not have the technology, we cannot vet the entire world, sir. We can vet America, but we cannot vet the entire world. And the problem is there's a lot of these countries that have no communications or diplomatic relationships with the United States, such as Venezuela, which is a great risk when I say I think we should grant them the same status as Cuba, because I believe it's gotten so bad there that I don't think a single bad person is going to come here. It's just people in absolute abject desperation looking to survive that are coming here. That's what I want to believe, because I still want to believe in the good of humanity, right? But you're right, it almost feels like we've forgotten what happened 22 years ago. So I'm sorry to say, but I cannot give you that answer because we just don't know. Not one member of the federal government will be able to address that for you. And it's embarrassing, and I'm sorry. Who was next?
You already answered, can you give another
Can we,
answer?
can we rotate a little
Yes.
bit? I saw other hands before, we'll go, oh, yes, I'm sorry, can I go there, and then we'll go ahead, sir.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you were talking about potentially removing some of the federal funding. My concern is that might just shift the burden disproportionately to New York City, New York State taxpayers. Have you considered that?
So, it's a tactic to actually try to get them to talk to us. We have the ability, we could have a long time ago, Congress could have a long time ago pulled all federal funding out of all these sites. We haven't because we understand and we don't want to burden the states. I live here. If we get tax burdens, I reap those burdens just like you do. So we're not trying to hurt the state, we're not trying to hurt the city. Quite frankly, I've been an advocate for Mayor Adams. Over the last 30 days, the man has come to his senses and I am applauding him. He's on a journey to South America now since the federal government won't go. You can criticize him, but he's doing something.
A little too late.
At least it's getting done.
How come we can't just send the buses around?
Look,
It's all
I'm
about the
not,
contracts.
I'm not here to dispute whether you agree or not with him. I'm here to acknowledge his work now. You might have not liked it earlier on, I like it now. And I'm as partisan as they come, I like the work he's doing. It's the work that we all should have been doing. So to answer your question, there is no real desire to placate funds and to stop funds. There's a desire to have a working relationship with these guys.
I have a similar question, but not specific to the migrants.
Go ahead.
When you were here as a candidate in 2020 on a Zoom meeting, you also spoke about the SALT cap.
That was my first legislation introduced.
Yeah.
So, my first bill introduced in Congress, I was there for under 2 weeks. I introduced the SALT Relief Act of 2023, which would essentially change the cap from $10,000 to $50,000, which would really benefit 75% of this district. The other 25%, half that would not be benefited, based on studies that we ran, would not really be impacted because we're talking about the ultra high net worth individuals that 25, 50, 10,000, they make up their losses elsewhere. But it would benefit the predominant 75% of Americans in New York's 3rd District, and in New York State at large that have a burden of up to 50,000, that does change the quality of life you live, that does change the quality of food you eat, that does change the social life you carry on. So that's a bill I put forward. Some of my colleagues have introduced several different versions of it. That is a bill that now I have decided that I will hold, my vote for speaker will be contingent on the next speaker taking on a real SALT measure. If that speaker is not willing to take SALT seriously, then that person doesn't want my vote. So I've made that very clear to every single candidate, and anybody who thinks of declaring, I've made that statement very clear. No SALT, no deal. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're coming close on time. She's the boss. So, well, let's do lightning round. Let's get some questions in quicker. So does anybody have quick, simple questions you want to throw in and we can give you yes or no's answers? And let's stop monopolize the room right behind you first. Go ahead. And I mean that with love.
What can be done about telling the buses they can't stop here and just send them back down south?
Yeah, block the bus.
Well, look, I've said that before. It's really easy to say this, but it's not functional. It's not feasible. Right, you're shipping people 20, 25 hours up, and then you're going to turn them around. I mean, that is an option of the governor.
No country, no borders.
The governor can make that decision, right? I've suggested it in the past, but it's still up to the governor or the mayor. Anyone else? Yes.
How come when they do things that a normal person like me, if I do something wrong, I will be arrested. But when they do something, then we're not supposed to even bother them.
We are arresting them, so I think there's a difference. So hold on, look, I
They
know
have no
some
ID on
stuff
them.
that happened here, and I've asked some of you to just please be careful. Let's not get into altercations. Something interesting happened the last time I was here. I started talking to them, and there were a couple of you who were there, and then you all started having similarities, like, oh my God, you're just a baby, right? I remember the comment. But that's when you remove the whole spookiness of the migrants, and they're gonna ruin my life, and then you see that it's just real people, right? And they're scared, and they're frustrated. I'm not making excuses for them. They shouldn't misbehave, they shouldn't break the laws, they should not assault people, they should not be shoplifting. Whatever it is that there are claims out there that are coming through, I think the laws are applicable to them. I think our men and women in blue do a phenomenal job with the amount of scrutiny that these guys carry, with the amount of pressure that the city puts on them. Guys like the two guys that are in the back really keep us safe. They're here tonight. I mean, we have a lot to be grateful for. Maybe we're seeing some stuff slip, but that's not unnormal than what we have seen in the past, right? We see crime slip all over the city with the regular rank and file of the city. So if you're seeing it slip here and there, unfortunately, we're never gonna be 100%, we can be 80%, so.
What,
Oh, can I go behind you, please? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Santos.
Good evening, ma'am.
My name is Mrs. Fiorentino, and I'm very concerned about child poverty. There was a child tax form, bill, not bill, but a child tax that was in the prior budget, and it was taken out. Now, this child tax allowed those parents who were qualified income-wise to get $250 or $300 a month, I'm sorry, to buy diapers, pay medical bills, get medicines for the children.
Supplemental assistance, essentially.
It was under the American Resources Plan, right? This was canceled at that negotiation, and at present it isn't in effect. So my question to you is, because I find that from what I read, that particular child tax credit really benefited these families who really came from an economically proven need, and they used it to benefit their children, and according to the schools, the kids were more awake, more participatory.
Nutrition
So my
plays a
question-
big plan, yes.
So my question to you is, when this new budget comes up, what is your position?
I'm listening. When the issue is up. I
What
voted,
is your position?
So my
on
position-
For or against, and please give me your reasons why.
and I will tell you, my position has always been wildly no child left behind. And essentially, I am for the program. I voted against the debt ceiling agreement. I didn't agree with it in many cases. So as your representative, I voted against removing that from the debt, from the budget. I voted against not putting a SALT revision in the budget. I voted against cutting spending in SNAP programs. That is why I voted against the debt negotiation agreement. I was one of 79 Republicans. Now, different Republicans voted for different reasons. I made it very clear when I went on CBS with Marsha Kramer. I said, no SALT, no deal. Cutting SNAP is not an option. Cutting Social Security is not an option. So I am for that, because as a child who was a recipient of the program when I was a kid and my parents could not afford to go on without assistance at a determined amount of time, I cannot turn a blind eye to the next generation and say, well, I got it, you don't, too bad. So I am on the same page with you, ma'am. I voted against the bill for that reason and many others, especially the SALT reason.
So what are you planning to do about it?
Well, right now, we're gonna go into the budget negotiations,
That's
and,
correct.
and when we're going through the appropriations process, that's when we have the ability to do amendments. Just so you have an understanding, these pages are all amendments that I've submitted on various different bills since I've taken office, right? And a lot of these were determined either non-germane, just for political reasons. Unfortunately, that is a tool that they have in Washington, D.C. And then the suggestion was to make them into independent bills. I encourage you to go to congress.gov, put my name in there, and you'll see the roster of bills that I've authored. You'll see the roster of bills I've co-sponsored. A lot of them have to do with child care, child health care in general, stopping PBMs, which is a big point of contention for me. If anybody here is on any kind of medication, you understand what a pharmacy benefit manager is. It's the reason your medication is unaffordable. So those are things I agree with, and I will continue to advocate for, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes.
you mentioned Biden is not communicating with New York or any of the other. What's the end game that you think Biden wants? Why is this
It's
happening?
election year next year. I think he's seeing that this is reflecting
Destroying
negatively
the
on him.
country?
He can really fix his electability by fixing this issue. It's destroying the country, but it's also hurting his electability. So I believe he's going to have to take it serious eventually. Look, in this room, we can have people who are for the president, who are not for the president. That doesn't matter. What matters is that he does his job. I want him to be successful. So I have to hope and really hope that he's going to take up negotiating with us. He's been very defiant in the past, did not come to the table with us until the 11th hour on the debt negotiation. It downgraded our credit rating because it took so long for us to put something forward. So these are all things that really hurt the country. So I really want to see him accept and understand that there was a check and balance in 2022 and the House flipped for a reason. They just want more moderation, and I think moderation is the way forward for this country.
Do we still have the tariffs coming in from, China?
No tariffs have been changed.
Oh,
So tariffs are still intact, yes.
okay, gotcha.
Anyone else in the back, anyone
you.
want to chime in? I encourage you to.
You can stick around.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Look, I thank you all for having me.
Thank you.
I look forward to doing this again.
Congressman, you came to Bellerose, Queens here. What was your meaning to come here for?
Doing my job, right? Just following up with the community. These folks elected me to go represent them in Washington, D.C., and I just came back to deliver them what we've been up to and just deliver transparency to them on what the issues are. Look, my job is to stay in touch with the community and keep a pulse out there, and civic associations are the heartbeat of every congressional district.
As you know, that there's the HERC centers open at Creedmoor. As a congressman, you seem to have evolved some of your positions. What have you witnessed at these centers that concerns you as a congressman?
Well, look, the reality is it's a humanitarian issue, and it's also an issue of quality of life for the community around, surrounding the area. So I think that my responsibility is to see, A, oversight of funds, B, are the funds being appropriately applied, and are they benefiting or are they reducing quality of life for the constituents? So I'm just trying to stay involved to understand how I can better navigate the situation and deliver results that make the constituency happy.
And have you talked with your local Democratic colleagues in the City Council, State Assembly, State Senate? You said you mentioned you have appreciated Mayor Eric Adams going to Latin America to see the crisis up hand. What's your thoughts on working with across the aisle locally besides in Congress? Oh,
look, I have no problem working across the aisle. My congressional office staff, they work really well with the city council people and city council members and the assembly offices and the state senate offices. We're open to working with anybody that's willing to do the work of the people. So I don't care about the R or D next to your name. I care about getting the work done.
And but are you still in favor of closing the border? Can you explain in the process how would you want that to happen in an ideal way?
The border needs to be handled. The border needs to be addressed. It's a problem. It's a humanitarian problem. Me, like most Americans, don't want to wake up knowing that kids were killed in a box truck, or families are floating upside down in the Rio Grande, caught up in currents, or in a flotation device that's pretty rough to look at and describe. But it's about making sure that the border is under control, right? So it needs to be controlled. So closing the border right now is a sensible solution to save lives.
Have you talked with anyone from the Biden administration about this situation so far?
The Biden administration isn't one to talk to a lot of Republicans. I'd be open to it, but I have not had any outreach from them. And I think at this point they should be outreaching to me and not the other way around.
It's been a very tumultuous week in Washington. What was your thoughts on the speaker being ousted in Congress?
I was against it. I didn't vote for it. I think it was hasty. I think we should have given him at least the 45 days of the continued resolution to see if he could deliver on the appropriations.
And why did you oppose it?
For the simple fact that I thought he should have be given the 45 days.
Any New York Republicans from in the area that supported this move, you know?
No, it was just 8 members, no New Yorkers.
No New Yorkers, okay. And what about the situation with your campaign? You said you want to run for re-election. What do you think about your chances for next year, or?
Not talking about campaigns with you while I'm wearing this pin, and this was an official visit, but you can always reach out to the campaign for those comments.
Okay, you
Thank
have
you.
anything else you want to say?
No, just thank you for being here. Thank you for recording. Thank you for documenting everything that's going on. I appreciate you.
Okay, spell your name.
Thank you. George Santos, George Santos.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Sorry
Appreciate
about
it.
when it's close.
Okay.
All right. So
All right,
Phil,
good
tell
luck.
me what brings you out here today.
I'm a concerned patriot. This is a nonpartisan issue. It's nice to see Republicans, Democrats, and independents with a general consensus to improve our neighborhoods. There's a consensus about the migrant problem that we have here.
So what do you think of George Santos coming to Bellerose Civic Association? What do you thought of his response towards the crisis going on here and his work as a congressman here?
I think he's doing a good job, but as far as the process, you know how everything takes time, and there's a lot of unanswered questions, and government takes time. It's a slow process, and there's a lot of answers that he doesn't have for us, because that's government. There's so much. There's different bills on the floor, and there's a lot of chaos going around, and government is just very slow, and things are going to take time to put the pieces of the puzzle together on all the major issues that affect us.
Now, I wanted to ask, what do you thought of Santos's response to the questions? You were asking questions to him. What was your response to him? Do you think this was adequate enough? What do you thought?
Well, listen, I always believe in legal immigration, and he shares the same point of view with me, but there's got to be a process. This is the idea that I got from George Santos. He's not against immigration, but he wants a legal framework to abide by, and this has always been a contentious issue at the border. As he said, we don't have enough judges to try these cases.
And what concerns you as a resident of Bellerose? What does it concern?
I'm just concerned about the crime, the quality of life. Lord said that the crime hasn't been up even prior to the migrants coming in. The crime has been a marginal. So I do agree on her with that respect. We just don't want the formation of Section 8 housing that might exacerbate the crisis.
What were some things that George Santos didn't highlight that you wanted to be highlighted? What do you think?
He basically answered all the questions except one question that I wanted to get out, is that the right to shelter laws. The right to shelter laws are applicable to New York legal citizens, not illegal migrants.
But on a federal level, did you, you're well aware that he has legal issues right now. What's your thoughts on that? No one really highlighted that in this venue.
It just seems that everything's moving slowly, and even he doesn't have the answers for this egregious problem. You know,
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking that he has legal issues on his own. You're well aware that George Santos has had problems.
That I can't say. This could be.
And his treasurer was actually.
I don't have proof to comment on that, but this could be a character assassination. I don't know. It's a mystery to me, but I don't really know what all the issues are. I'm gonna have to revisit these issues, but I think it's a witch hunt and a character assassination against George Soros. I think social issues should be put on the side. What's more important is the economy, and it's the issues. These social issues are used to derail people, and I think we should give them a chance, because I believe in redemption, because we all make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I got issues too. I mean, if I was to run, I would be transparent on my, skeletons in my closet. George Santos is a human being like everyone else, and he deserves a chance of redemption.
Okay. You have any parting comments that you want to say?
No, I just to say, let's just make America great again. Make Bellerose great again.
Can you spell your name?
Malizia. I'm Philip Malizia. I'm on the County Committee of the 33rd Assembly District, 50D, and newly appointed committee man of the Bellerose Civic Association.
All right. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Congrats, by the way, Phil.
All right.
What's your thoughts of George Santos coming to the Bellerose Civic Association And do you think that he was able to answer your questions in regards to the migrant situation at Creedmoor?
He's absolutely hands-on, and we're very thankful in the community here, some of the residents, that he's been the only congressman who has come to our aid, who has come with the migrant situation. And I wanted to ask him tonight, where's Senator Chuck Schumer? How come he's not here? He's from Queens. How come he's not out here supporting us and helping us and giving us guidance?
I think he's from Brooklyn, right?
No, he's from Queens. His mom lives in North Shore Towers, and he's in Queens.
Okay.
And we're thankful that we have Congressman George Santos, and I'm hoping that he will be re-elected again.
Yes, I did see you at that press conference about a
Yes,
few weeks ago.
yes.
Have you reached his office in regards
We've
to...
had meetings with him. We've been hands-on with him. I'm back and forth with his representative, Mark, with emails. So I pretty much know everything where he is and what he's doing.
Yeah, let's be quite frank. George Santos is a very controversial character, you know, across the national media outlook is that, you know, he has palms in his skeletons and closet. What's
You
your
know
thoughts on that?
what? We all have skeletons in our closet. All of us. We're human. That's human nature. And quite honestly, I'm not concerned about his skeletons. My thing as the congressman, if he can do the job and get the job done, that's all I'm interested in.
Right, right. And your concern is closing this shelter.
Yes, and the Section 8 thing that they're trying to put through.
What have you told local politicians besides George Santos about the situation at Creedmoor?
I've called, I've sent emails, I've extended invites to the protest. You get nothing in return. Only Congressman Santos responds.
Right. And what you wanted to hear from him that you didn't hear from him today?
I pretty much am on board with him, and I knew what he was going to say tonight because we have discussed it a couple of weeks ago. So it is what it is, but hopefully when we get a new House Speaker, they'll be on board and we'll be able to make America great again.
Okay, can you spell your name? You have any concluding thoughts first?
No, just I'm hoping that we can save our community.
Can you spell your name?
Gina, Gina.
Last name?
Quinn, Quinn.
All right, thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
All set.
Anyone else?
Yeah, anyone else? We're just collecting interviews about the press conference.
Come on, Tony, come on. It's Steve Behar, S-T-E-V-E, B as in boy, E-H-A-R.
All right, and you're running for Congress against George Santos?
I am one of the many Democratic candidates running in the primary
Because there's Anna
for the
Kaplan
third.
and-
Yeah.
What do you think of George Santos coming to the Bellerose Civic Association and what he said here? It did seem that he has some sort of a supportive crowd here. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that, clearly there's a good amount of Republicans in this community, but I think there is definitely a majority Democrat. He spoke to that crowd clearly, and but I think a lot of what he said shows, the problems that the Republican caucus in the House has.
Right. And what did you notice from him when he spoke in front of the crowd that you were able to tell that you disagreed with him?
Well, I think that, as he was talking about,
That's not.
Yeah, it's okay?
It's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
Sure.
Sure. Sorry, I found that issue.
No problem. I mean, obviously the major issue tonight was about the migrants that are close by here. And, at this point, I feel that it's a Republican problem. This is something that they were sent here by a Republican governor from another state. And yeah, I think the state and our federal government need to do more. But to sit there and, blame, our elected officials for that, it seems crazy.
Right. Well, if you had a chance to speak to him, what would you want to brought out with him if you were in this venue? What would have brought out? If you were to,
Well, I think the one thing that he seemed to miss with the whole migrant problem is that we need a holistic solution to this problem, because we can't just build a wall and stop people from coming. People are going to go over the wall, they're going to go under wall, they're going to go through the wall. We have to do things that stop them from coming here in the first place. We need to have better technology. We need to have more people down on the border, and we also need to have these people coming here. They're going through a lot to get here. The reasons they're coming here is usually violence, gang violence, civil war, and of course there's lack of economic opportunities where they are. So one of the things we need to do is work with those governments to solve the problems that are causing these people to leave. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you're going to take your family 600 miles through a desert to get away from violence, this is, no matter what we do, they're going to still come here. We need to help these other countries down in Central America solve those issues. We also need to, these people are legitimately asking for asylum. We need to process them longer. Also, it takes up to 180 days to get them work permits.
Right.
So during that time when they're here, if they're not able to work, we have to house them, we have to feed them. If we gave them work permits quicker, then they would get jobs, they would take care of themselves. They want to work. If you go speak with them, they're looking for work.
We've interviewed a couple of me and him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they definitely are they want to work.
Obviously, you live in this district. You're well aware of his legal problems. What would you highlight in that to constituents about that? In front of the
Well, I mean, he's a fraud. I mean, at the end of the day, everything that he said he is untrue. And if someone came to you for a job and said, I have these degrees and I have all this experience and I have all this knowledge, hire me for this job. And you say, great, you're hired. And then you find out later that that person doesn't have that experience, he doesn't have those degrees, he doesn't have that knowledge, you fire him. So we're at a point now that he gave us a fraudulent job interview 2 years ago. And it's time for us to fire him.
Are you surprised no one was kind of more confrontational with him at some stages during this thing? No one really brought up, for example, that his former treasurer pleaded guilty?
Yeah, she just pleaded guilty today. I was very surprised that more people didn't question him on the fraudulent way he got elected. So it was actually very surprising to me.
Did you ever want to do that at some point? Did you want to confront him, or did you feel like...
No, I was a guest here. This wasn't a candidate for him. At the end of the day, he is the congressman. So I was just sitting back as a guest at the Civic Association. I've been here plenty of times before. So I was just like anybody else. I didn't come here as a candidate.
Okay, so you're kind of outside the election frame for this. This is just kind of... I see what you're... so I guess, if you only have to ask a question, right?
Yeah, sure.
So do you think right to shelter is sustainable as a model here in New York State, if this is going to keep continuing to happen?
I think we need help from the state. I think we need help from the federal government. One thing about right to shelter that no one's talking about is if we don't follow through with right to shelter, then people are going to be living in the streets, and then people are going to be up in arms about that. So, as I said before, if we work to get these people work permits faster, we'll get them out of the shelter. The shelter problem, it's more than just the migrants. I've been trying to help a friend of mine who's been living in a shelter for over 6 months get out of the shelter and get some work. And it's a mess. It's a horrible system. I was literally talking to her social worker today. She has a voucher that she hasn't been able to find a landlord to take it. We've got to do better on homelessness, and the homelessness crisis goes also to the housing crisis. It all works together.
Are you for more housing being built? Because I know a big contentious issue some of them have is with some of the low-income housing they want to build on the Creedmoor properties here in Bellerose.
I think I'm all for building more housing. At the same time, anything that we build has to be contextual. So we don't want to destroy the character of the community. We also have to build housing in areas that it makes sense to build. The problem with the Creedmoor campus is that we are a transportation desert. I mean, the closest subway here is 179th Street and Jamaica, and Hillside Avenue actually, and we're at 257th. There's no transportation here, and it's also not a job hub. So if you're going to build low-income housing, and you want people to work and you want people to be able to get around, this isn't the place. What I would like here, by the way, is we have an aging community. So I'd like to build senior affordable housing, because one issue that we do have in this community is a lot of seniors have owned their houses for 30, 40, 50 years, and now their kids are gone, they may be a widow or widower, but they want to remain in the community. They may not be able to afford keeping that house, and they may not be able to afford the rents here. So I'd like to have senior affordable housing to allow the seniors to stay here, and potentially also some senior veteran affordable housing too.
Okay, you have any concluding thoughts?
Um,
Mark?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask just two more questions.
Sure.
I noticed inside there was a little bit of an argument between some of the constituents over what the Civic Association is doing. Could you explain what you're, as a kind of someone who's just kind of observing, could you explain what that was like? And next time when I came back, I saw it got a little contested.
Yeah, it was very disconcerting because this civic has been around for decades. And the people who run this civic association, Lourdes, Richard, they've literally been around 20, 30, 40 years. They know our community. They've been serving our community for all that time. The idea that they're not serving the community made no sense to me. And I, frankly, had never seen these people who were making these accusations. So I think it was completely uncalled for. These, the people who are running this civic, and you can tell from the crowd, you can tell from the people here, they've been in the community for the most part for a while. We've got new people coming in, but altogether, they all care about the community, and that's the most important thing.
Cool. Could you explain more about how Lourdes talked about some of the impact, or I guess maybe where she contended with the impact, say, on property values or crime in the area, where this was kind of a part of it? I only saw part. I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, the problem when the migrants came and they built the property over there at Creedmoor, a lot of rumors were flying around.
Yes.
For example, everybody was talking about crime is up, crime is up. I actually met with the commanding officer of the 105th Precinct last week. Crime is not up. There's no spike in crime. The thing that the 105th Precinct has been dealing with is because these people can't work, and because we're a transportation desert, they tend to go to the park across the street, and
Loiter.
there may be some drinking, there's some loitering. Couple of them have urinated in the park. So there's been some minor quality of life things that the 105th Precinct has done a good job at handling. So there hasn't been a spike in crime. The same thing also was this fear-mongering that once that property was built, that property values were going to tank here. And they clearly haven't. I mean, it's a beautiful community. Housing prices have not fallen. The schools are great. So it's a good place to live.
About two of those things as this crisis kind of goes along that could happen because of the issue with getting the work authorization. Because of that, they're going to look for more desperate avenues to kind of, I guess, for lack of a better word, look for to kind of sustain being alive.
Well, I mean, right now, I mean, they're housed, they're fed, so there's no desperate situation. You gotta remember, these people are leaving really, really bad situations. So the situation they're in now may not be perfect, but it's much better than what they came for. But we should do a better job, get them work permits, get them working, let them be self-sustaining.
So I've interviewed a few of those people that were talking during there. For example, the person we were interviewing for, what was his name?
Philip and Loza?
Yeah, Philip. One thing he's told me about is he said to me, and again, I've asked about this too, he's worried that if you give him work authorization, he'll have the right to vote in the community and change things. What would you say to that to his concern?
You need to be a citizen to vote. So that's a crazy accusation. But this is what's happened. There's been a lot of fear-mongering. There's been a lot of fear-mongering about crime, a lot of fear-mongering about property values, and there's a lot of fear-mongering that suddenly these people are going to come here and vote. Only people who can vote in New York State are citizens. The City Council did pass a bill that was deemed unconstitutional that permanent residents would be able to vote, that would be people with green cards, which
Yeah,
wouldn't be them either.
No, they're
But,
struggling for that.
but frankly, but that was struck down as unconstitutional as per the New York State Constitution. So the only people who are voting in New York State elections are citizens.
Okay, perfect. Do you care if I ask one more question?
Sure.
If you could have a one-on-one with George Santos, what would you say to them?
It's a good question. The thing that I've been amazed at with Congressman Santos is that I couldn't do what he did. I couldn't lie about my whole life. I'm an open book. I am who I am. People know my educational background, and I don't know how he looks himself in the mirror to be such a fraud, to lie to so many people, and then just say, "Oh well, give me a mulligan." It's not something that I could do.
Do you think he's going to win the primary?
It's very well. He very well could with the MAGA constituency. There's not a lot of rationality there.
Are you from Bellerose?
I'm from Bayside, actually.
Bayside, I got you. So do you consider Bellerose Santos country, or how do you?
I don't consider any place Santos country.
Understand. All right. So
And frankly, I've been active in this community for decades, and until 3 years ago when he ran against Tom Suozzi, I'd never heard of George Santos. He has no accomplishments. He has no background. Nobody knew who he was up until the last couple of years.
all right.
Can you spell your name? Oh,
Just spell your name.
Oh, Steve Behar, Steve
And you're running for the congressional.
Behar.
Sorry, resay that one more time. I apologize. That's my fault.
Sure, Steve Behar.
And you're running as a congressional candidate in the 3rd District here in New York.
I'm a Democratic candidate in the Democratic primary for the 3rd Congressional
Awesome,
District.
cool. And so you have transparency. Is there anything you'd like to just jump out ahead as a candidate or talk about?
Well, I think that this race is going to be really important on a national level because we lost 5 seats here in New York, and that basically cost the whole House of Representatives to flip. And this district needs to go back to being a blue district if we're going to help make Congress a Democratic House again. And frankly, nothing has gotten done since the Republicans have taken over the House. We've got total stagnation down there. And as you can see, the mess with the speakership now, it's chaos. And we had 4 years of chaos with Trump. And finally, we got things done. President Biden had the most successful legislative first couple of years of any president since Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And suddenly, the House turned Republican, and all that progress stopped. So I'm looking forward to helping the Democrats turn this seat back to blue, and I'm looking to help the Democrats turn the House back to blue.
Awesome. Just one last thing. Is there anything you want to, like you're talking about honesty, transparency, is there anything you want to jump ahead of to kind of address before anything happens, and kind of in that sense of like you want to be straightforward?
In what sense?
Just in any sense, like you're saying that people could look at the wrong way or some kind of background. Or
From me?
Yeah.
I mean, the people in this district know me. I mean, I've been around for decades. I have 4 degrees. I'm a former Securities and Exchange Commission attorney. I spent a couple of decades on Wall Street. I was corporate counsel at Toys R Us. I had my own law practice where my clients were small businesses. I spent 2 years as counsel in the state Senate. I spent 6 years as counsel to the city councilman from this district. So they know me.
Linda Lee? Or is that before Linda Lee?
I think that's
No, I was for Councilman Barry Grudenchik. I actually ran against Linda.
All right. So forgive me, one last question. What do you say to those in the community that say, I just want the shelter out of here, get them out, they've come here illegally, we're putting too many resources into, like many would hear tonight from the dissenting people here. What would you say to those people if you could have a
Well,
message?
I think the problem with the migrants being here now is it's just not, as I mentioned, to you, it's not a great place for them. You know, we're a nation of immigrants. All four of my grandparents were immigrants. My wife is a Haitian immigrant. I'm very pro-immigrant, and frankly, when I speak to small business owners all over, not only the district, but all over the state, all over the country, we have a worker shortage. So I think that, you know, adding to the work population, helping alleviate that worker shortage will, you know, help our small businesses, also put less pressure on inflation. But as I said earlier, we're in a transportation desert, and we're not in an area with a lot of job opportunities. So I think there would be, you know, better places that make more sense than, you know, this kind of generally sleepy eastern Queens.
Understood. Steve, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Appreciate that.